Oh, that is a nice copper coin. But oh, Doug, do you know what time it is?
45 up.
Who says 45 up, Doug? It's quarter after. What's up, guys? Hoarder here. And oh man, I'm excited to bring you something new, something different and unique this week. I have on an incredible speaker and storyteller. This one is going to be so much fun. Richie Kohler, who is, he dives some of the most treacherous and dangerous deep sea wrecks in the world. I'm talking the Titanic, the Britannic that's been in the news this week, German subs going down 300-400 feet. Bringing things up. It's amazing. And he's a gifted storyteller. So I'm really excited to have him on. I think you guys are going to really enjoy him. Let me say a couple hellos before I bring in Dougie. I see Amanda Collins is here. Thank you, Amanda. Sue Ramsey, NEPA History and Archaeology Search. Relic Rat, Recovering Artifacts. Nick Shalino. I'm getting used to the name, Nick. Audrey Girlinghouse, good friend of the show. Thank you, Audrey. Scudo Hunter Bruce. Chris Heimsoth. Rick Rawrig. Alan Wiltshire, everybody, thank you. It's going to be a super fun show. And talking about a super fun show, let's bring the energy way, way down and bring in Dog Tag Doug. Why is it so small, Doug? There you are.
Yeah, I do bring the level down a bit, don't I?
No, I'm only joking. I'm glad, Doug. What's funny is, I spent all week, I told Doug and Richie, I spent all week like researching, not only Richie, but just diving and what's entailed, these shipwrecks and all that stuff. And I know so much about diving this week. I should go out this week before I forget it all, Doug.
Get your wetsuit on.
But it's going to be really good. I do want to say, I see 5 Mile Relic Hunter. It's his 32nd anniversary. Wow, he doesn't look that old, but happy anniversary there, Larry. Doug, I do want to get a couple announcements in before Richie comes on. Metal detecting announcements coming up in a couple of weeks. It was just announced November 1st up in Rhode Island, Natural Hunt, Dirt Fishing Adventures. Our good friend Brian, who we may be there. I'm not sure. It's in Burrillville, Rhode Island. It's a 1-day hunt on an old 1700s colonial field. People email me all the time. They'd love to find large scents, have a chance for reals and cobs and all that stuff. And although no guarantees, these are the kind of hunts that you would have a good shot for. It's all natural in colonial New England, up in Rhode Island. The hunts of Brian's we've been to before, we've always done really well. A lot of people are finding coppers and old silver and shoe buckles. There was George Washington button the one time, Doug. So if you want to try some colonial stuff, make sure you check it out. dirtfishingadventures.com. I'm not being paid, Doug. I just do it because
you love it.
I do love it. And then coincidentally, Doug, the same weekend, our good friend Gypsy Jules is doing her birthday bash. This is a 2-day back. It's on Halloween night, October 31st, and the next day, November 1st. It's down in Edna, Texas. There's all sorts of things hidden in the ground, all sorts of prizes. Gypsy gives away a ton of stuff. You'll get to meet Gypsy, who is super cool, and you'll have a really fun time. So if you live up north and maybe you want to go to the Rhode Island, you live down south, maybe you want to go to Gypsies or vice versa, make sure you check them out. 2 awesome people, 2 awesome hunts. What do you think of that, Dougie?
That's awesome.
I do see Teresa, the treasure hunter, in the chat tonight. Thank you, Teresa, for doing all that moderation thing. And Doug, I know you, metal detectorist here. Thank you. Doug, I know you're not a big internet person necessarily, whatever the wording is. But today, Nokta and Dealic made their official announcement for the Legend 2. They did a live stream. Obviously, I still have my Legend 2 that we broke the story on, with ours. But they announced it officially today with the price. So the price in the U.S. is finally announced, $9.99. I've been using the machine more and more every day. Really, really like it. I'm going to probably start putting some short videos out maybe in the next day or two so people can get a little sample of, what it sounds like, what it can do, different things, the way that the coil head bends around, the bigger screen, the 99 VDI, the backlit buttons, like all the cool, I think I said backlit buttons. I didn't mean to say that. Backlit buttons.
Backlit.
Yeah, I said backlit. I saw Doug's eyes open up real big, so I apologize. But it's going to be a really good machine. I hope all you guys check it out. And I think she's given 2 of them away. You got to like share her live stream with like a hashtag or something. Go share it on your Facebook, your MySpace, your whatever things you do. Snapchat, the Snapchat's big. Maybe you'll win one of the 2 Noke the Legend 2s, Doug. Not you, Doug. You're not eligible.
I know.
But
I hope you bring it with you Saturday. We could give it a test run.
I will be bringing it. Yeah, I'm excited for it. I should be getting another one next week. So then we'll have 2. Mine was the prototype. I'll be getting like a test one.
Okay.
So I'll give you the prototype.
Oh, okay. That's me all over. Prototype.
Now you might notice there's no Rich, Lynn, or Charlie today. They were nice enough to sit back tonight, not come into the show, only because I know this guest is an incredible storyteller. I'm going to throw him a softball and let him tell some incredible tales of his adventures. And the guys, they wouldn't be able to contribute much because I want Richie to really, really run with the show tonight.
Well, I hope they're watching though.
I think they will be. And listen, if you don't know anything about deep sea diving or shipwreck diving, which I didn't know, Doug, of all the storytellers, this guy is really good. He's written a book. He's had a TV show, Deep Sea Detectives, for like 4 or 5 seasons on History Channel. There's been books written about him, PBS specials, National Geographic specials. The guy travels the world. And when I say shipwreck diving, Doug, I'm not talking like, a recreational 30-foot dives where you see the pretty Nemo fish swimming around. I'm talking like 300, 400 feet where you need these special chemical, helium and different tri-boxes, they call it.
Yeah.
You can't even come back up. Like if your tank's getting low, you can't just come, but you got to come up a little bit and sit there maybe for an hour, come up a little bit more, sit there so your body can decompress.
Pressure equalizes.
Yeah. Like you've got to be on the ball. And when you get down that distance, because of the gases you're breathing in, you get like this drunken, foggy feeling. So even though like you're doing everything right, it's almost like you're drunk down there just because of what you have to breathe in. And then you still have to like have your wits about you. You dive into these old ships, anything on you can get snagged, a hose, anything. And there's no one to help you. It's total darkness. Like it's really, really dangerous work that you have to know every aspect of the dive beforehand. And so we're going to hear all about it in 6 minutes from one of the very best. And so I'm really excited to have him come on.
Awesome.
Ooh. Doug, do you have any announcements before Richie comes on?
No, but I'm looking forward to the possibility of going to Rhode Island in 4 weeks, I believe.
Yeah, whatever the time is. Yeah, like I said, Brian puts on some really cool events.
We missed it last year. Maybe we'll be able to make it this year. Yeah,
we're going to try. It's hard. That's Halloween weekend. It might be tough, but we're going to try and see. So
are you booked for Halloween weekend at some fright fixture?
No, I'm not necessarily booked, but and my kids are grown now, Doug. I do have a grandson now who I might see.
Oh, that's right. I forgot.
I just enjoy. I enjoy sitting on the porch with my wife and watching the little kids walking up down the street and handing out candy. I enjoy it. I don't know what it is. So Halloween's one of those weird days where I kind of like sitting home because it's fun. I get to watch the little guys go around and dress up like I don't know, whatever they dress up as, like Casper the Ghost or whatever's the more modern.
I know Rich is seriously into that decorating and the whole bit.
Yeah. So
I'm just into eating the candy,
I'm seeing some questions already in the chat. Chris Heimsoth was saying, are there any ghosts in these old shipwrecks? Those are questions I'm going to ask him because you got to have been there to do it.
That's an interesting thought, though.
Well, what's really cool, Doug, and I say cool's not the right word. I don't know what the word would be, but you hear shipwreck and you think like, oh, wow, that's kind of cool. It's kind of mysterious. But some of these wrecks that he's come across, he was the first guy there. Yeah. And what I mean by that, when he penetrates, as they call it, goes into the ship, there might be dozens of deceased people sitting
Yes.
there because, and those are the weird, like, imagine that, like, you're so far removed from the world in total darkness, all alone. And now you're surrounded by deceased people that you're trying to be respectful to, but it's still got to be a little bit eerie. It's,
Yeah.
it's such an interesting thing. All around, and he does it respectfully, and it's really cool. I don't even need him to come on. We're just going to talk about it.
Yeah. I think we need his expertise.
All right, that's fair.
We would screw it up royally.
That's
and
fair.
Hello, Alicia.
And one of the wrecks that I'm just going to mention it because I don't even know if I'm going to get to this in the show, but one of the wrecks that he dove was the Titanic, Doug. And, when I told you some of these deep ones are 300-400 feet, how deep do you think the Titanic is, Doug?
It's, I think I remember hearing it was like 3 miles down or somewhere around there. It was a long haul.
Yeah, I only know
you don't put scuba gear on and go down.
No, you need something much deeper. Yeah, but some of the deepest ones that people dive are 300 and 400 feet, where the Titanic is 12,000 feet.
Okay.
So even in like a submersible ship takes hours to get down there. So, that's really cool.
280 feet is a mile. So times 2.5. So I was close, around 3 miles.
Yeah, whatever the mile is. Oh, Hot Mess Fishing is here. I saw.
I just said hello to her. She said hi to me.
I saw her in the Nookta premiere today, and like I said, I'm not going to get to it a whole lot today. But if you didn't check it out, I got it right here. It's the only one in the world right now, other than that one Dealic had in her hand. So if you're looking for a new machine, I'm not trying to like sell it to you necessarily. I'm just saying this is an awesome machine. It's brand new. This is the only one in the world right now. So if you want to get a metal detector, go check out their website, nookdetectors.com. You can check it out. You can read all the specs, and it'll be available to you guys. And probably, I don't want to put words in your mouth, I'm guessing about a month, 5 weeks, something like that.
And it's interesting when she was on, what was it, 2 weeks ago?
Yeah.
Yeah. She said it was going to be somewhere around $1,000. So it came in at $999.
Yeah, she was right on the money.
Right on the money.
So if you guys are looking to upgrade, you want something different, or if whatever the reason is, it's an awesome machine. Wait till you see it. You're going to really love it. So make sure you guys check that out.
Right.
All right, Doug. I see Richie in the back. I'm going to get ready to bring him on. Are you ready, Doug?
I'm ready.
It's going to be
wrapped in.
Well, I've been talking about him the whole show. But if you just got here late, if you're not familiar with Richie, he's explored some of the most famous shipwrecks in the world, from the Andrea Doria up in Boston Harbor to the Titanic sister, the Britannic, which has been in the news this week for the first artifacts ever recovered. They swam the German U-boat 869 and actually identified it off the coast of New Jersey, which no one knew it was there. And that was the inspiration for the international bestseller book, Shadow Divers. Also spawned his History Channel show, Deep Sea Detectives. He's even been, like I said, to the Titanic. And along the way, he wrote his own book, The Last Olympian, which we'll get into a little bit later. So, ladies and gentlemen, I can't be more excited. The man who has risked literally everything, uncovering these secrets from the deep. And tonight we get to share his stories firsthand. So everyone welcome Mr. Richie Kohler. Richie, how are you, sir?
Hey, Rich.
I'm good, man. Thank you for having me out tonight.
Oh, man, I'm really excited. I like I told you in the pre-show, I've never really read so much about the diving, these shipwrecks before, but I'm psyched, man. If I was like 30 years younger, Richie, I'd be going to that school trying to learn it and give it a shot.
It's never too late. You can still do it.
Well, I could do it, but maybe not down to the some of these crazy ones.
No. I've been doing this my entire life. As we was talking earlier, my dad got me into diving at a wee young age, and here I am, just 20 years later. I'm still doing it.
You look great. You look like $1 million.
Yeah.
So let me put you over on the big side, Richie, so people can see you better.
All right.
And let me quickly start the beginning before we go into your story. Can you give us a little bit of background of how you started diving? What got you originally hooked, where now, like you said, 20 years later, it's such a big passion in your life?
Well, back in, I was born in 1962. And so I was literally born into one of the most, I think, incredible times in human history, certainly in American history, the space race.
Oh,
And so as a young boy, obviously growing up in Brooklyn, New York, my potential for adventure was confined to the city block that I lived in. I literally grew up in one of the biggest cities in the world. But I was fortunate. I was fortunate in that, my family was really into, obviously, I think most people were really interested in what was going on in the news with the space race. And so as a young boy watching my grandparents, my parents glued to the television, watching these rockets fire off, I wanted to be an explorer. And as a little kid, I started building rockets. And then something really magical happened in my life in 1968, 1969. My dad took scuba diving lessons. And, he was a blue collar guy, just like me, but he had a boat and he loved being on the water. And it's just kind of a natural thing that he wanted to learn how to scuba dive. And he took me with him. I was his oldest son. I got to go sit there and I watched my dad as, he got in the pool and he put this double hose regulator over his head, put it in his mouth, and he disappeared below the surface in a cascade of bubbles. And I was just like,
that's cool.
this is the coolest thing ever. My dad is an explorer. Now, the coolest thing about my dad, God rest his soul, he passed this year.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Was not to thank you. He had a great life. He encouraged his children. He enabled them. And in that, he allowed me, once he was a certified diver, he brought his gear home, and then he would take me and bring me to, out on the family boat, and we would go in water that was knee deep. He'd put the tank on me. The tank was even bigger than me, but it didn't matter. And let me, in knee-deep water, just get the experience of what it was like to breathe through a regulator, to be underwater, to put my head under. I had a little kiddie mask because obviously I couldn't wear my dad's mask. Sure. It was too big for my head. But I got my early taste of what it was like to be an explorer and to actually understand the parallel between space travel and inner space. And in a way, the ocean is inner space. We're reliant on equipment to keep us alive. We're reliant on technology. We have a very finite amount of resources. Otherwise, you're in trouble. So I just, as a little kid caught up in the Apollo space program, I just kept going back and forth in my head thinking, wow, this is the way a kid from Brooklyn can be an explorer. And that passion stayed with me until I was 15 years old. And then I could become certified. And, my earliest adventures under the water was being a hunter-gatherer. I don't know whether it's the testosterone of being a young man, but, my dad was a fisherman, loved to catch fish. And so it was, I think, a natural progression for me to get a spear gun, to spear fish, to get lobster, to get scallops. In other words, go out on the water, bring something home, to accomplish something. But that didn't mean that if I went diving and I didn't get any fish or scallops or lobsters, that it was a bust. It was still a great adventure. I mean,
sure.
Here you are going out, again, as a young man, thinking about, I'm just swimming in the ocean. On occasion, I see a shark. When I'm on the boat out there, we see whales. I mean, it was truly, and still is truly, an adventure. In that every time you go diving in the ocean, you really never know what you're going to see or what you possibly can find. And, I'm 63 years old and I still have that same passion, that same drive, and it still brings me to go diving. And, it was a transition from 15 to 20. My passions kind of waned for spearfishing, not because I wasn't good at it. As a matter of fact, I was very good at it. But what happened was I was about 22 years old and I was spearfishing off North Carolina. And I had shot a grouper, a small grouper, and it went under a steel plate with my spear in it. And I had to get under the steel plate and pull my spear out with the fish on the end. And I noticed something sticking out of the sand. And to me, it looked like a wheel or a pulley. In my mind, it looked like a pulley. And for some reason, I don't know why, I grabbed it. I didn't even have a bag to put it in. I had a stringer for fish, but I didn't even have it. So I had to swim around with it like under my arm. And when it came up, I'm on the boat, everybody was like, oh, yeah, good. Yeah, you got some fish. But there was an old timer on the boat, and he goes, hey, that's pretty neat. Looks like you got yourself a gauge there. I'm like, gauge? What do you mean? And he, back then, everybody had knives that were about this long, and he pulls a knife out of his sheath and he takes it, but not with the knife part, the handle part. And he taps the incrustation on what I thought was a pulley. And all the coral and growth fell away. And it was a Chelsea clock that had the name of the ship on it, which was the Carib Sea. So it had the name of the ship. And although the steel hands had rusted away, you could see where they were before they rusted away. So the time that the clock stopped.
Yeah, you have the exact moment.
It was a breathtaking moment for me. It was literally like an epiphany, if you will. And it literally was one of those times. And you'll hear me say this, our lives are roads we travel until we hit a bump or a fork and, we take a path. Sometimes it's the path less traveled. Sometimes it's not. But the reality is this was one of those moments where I opted, instead of continuing to become a spear fisherman, I then started looking at shipwrecks as a repository for not only the artifacts, but of stories. And that's the thing, is that this artifact told a story. It told me the name of the ship. And that was really cool. Not only that, it told me the time the clock stopped.
Yeah, that's cool.
Cooler. So, it's like, so I not only got a memento of that dive, if you will, a souvenir, but it set me on a path to try to understand. And so, of course, now I wanted to know more about that ship. I wanted to know the history of that ship. Where was it built? How did it sink? Why did it sink? Did people die when it sank? And so, again, it set me on a course that here I am over 40 years later, still doing that very exact thing.
No, that's amazing. And as you talk about it, it's funny from our perspective as people that metal detect, which is very different, but it's a lot of the same things. We find old pocket watches that the hands rust into shape. And just like you with the ship, oh, who was it? Are there initials on there? It's a lot of parallels where our version's a little safer. Yours is a little more adventurous.
Yeah.
But I totally get the passion. I totally get just wanting to dive into it, for the pun, because it just consumes you, with this interest.
No, absolutely.
And then do you still have that to this day, that little piece of the...
I do. It's mounted on the wall about 10 feet away from my head. So,
that's amazing.
Yep.
So in going over your story, you got hooked early age. And then from what I gathered, you joined a now really famous dive club up in that New York, New Jersey area. Can you tell us about how that was? And did those guys help, kind of master your craft to take this further?
So, back in the late 70s, early 80s, there was no real technical training for wreck diving. There was diving classes to teach you how to go scuba diving, but there was no one really training people on the techniques of how to penetrate the shipwreck, what equipment you needed, what were the pitfalls. None of these things were really being taught. So if you wanted to learn more, you had to go with more experienced divers. And so I fell in with a group of primarily older fellows that had been diving shipwrecks. And the first thing that they did was look at my sport diving equipment, the gear on my back, and say, look, if you're going to dive with us, kid, you're going to need double tanks. The single tank's not going to be enough, because we're going to be going a little deeper. We're going to be going to 130, 150 feet of water. We're going to be doing something called decompression, because if you go deep and you stay long, you can't come straight up to the surface. You've got to come up in stages, so you need more air. That's why you need the double tanks. And because we're going to be going deeper and further offshore, the water is going to be colder, so you can't just wear a wetsuit. You're going to have to use this equipment that we're going to be borrowing from, or is manufactured primarily for military or commercial divers, which is called a dry suit, which you wear heavy woolen under undergarments underneath, and it seals at your neck and your wrists so you stay dry underneath, so you can be warmer and be more efficient and safer as you dive deeper in colder water. And then, of course, other things like that you take for granted. Well, if you're going to go inside a shipwreck and you only have one light, if that light burns out or the battery dies or a combination of the both, you're screwed. You're not going to find yourself out. So you're going to need redundant lights, really good night lights. And shipwrecks, well, you know what? They're a hazard. They're filled with lines. There's fishing lines because fishermen and commercial fishermen and their nets have been getting caught on shipwrecks for as long as they've been sunk, as well as the fact that there is wires and all kinds of things inside that can ensnare your equipment. So you can't just have one knife. You got to have 2 or 3 knives, because can you imagine you're stuck inside a shipwreck, the visibility is going to 0 and you're snagged on something, you're trying to hack away with it with your knife, but you drop it. So you have to have, so you can understand that these guys gave me all of the benefits of their years of experience. And by the way, this is not experience that they imagine. These are lessons learned of tragedy. Almost every one of the things I have that I have been sharing with you has a genesis that goes directly back to either a near miss or a tragedy.
Yeah.
And so from that, we learn and we grow. And if we don't learn from those tragedies, well, then we're destined to repeat them. So this group of older fellows took me in. Now, I'd like to think that, yes, we had a lot in common. They sensed, I think, in me a bit of passion and that I had the moxie to do this. But I also understood that they needed some fresh blood. They needed a couple of young guys to round out the group. And the reason for that was because the type of diving they were doing was frowned upon by everybody else. The dive industry, the dive charter boats, the scuba diving shops, they didn't like this. It was dangerous. And when people got hurt or there was a problem, someone had to be evacuated, there was a potential for lawsuits. Nobody wanted to be a part of it. So how did these guys get around it? They chartered their own boats. We created a group. So they had to have enough people in the group so that they could mitigate the cost of the boat. So this group became a bona fide diving club. And we came up with some of the names that people called us was the Deep Freaks, the Thugs, the Crazies. Well, none of those really kind of look good on a T-shirt. So we came up with the name the Atlantic Wreck Divers. Yeah. And that was, we didn't want to have bowling jackets. So yeah, we came up with a skull and crossbones. We thought it was kind of.
It looks cool. It reminds me of the old Outsiders movie with Matt Damon, with Matt Dillon. Yep. That looks cool.
Yeah,
but go ahead. I didn't want to run up
that's me in the middle. I had a lot of hair back then. And
yeah, you're tall. You were a tall son of a gun too. But yeah, so those guys, like you said, took you under their wing. And I get what you mean. Like, you don't know what you know, but for every, like you said, near miss or God forbid, a real tragedy, you learn from that. You come up with ways to correct that. And then you have enough of those situations until you get to be more of an expert on it. And like you said, you guys were leading the charge because most people weren't doing this.
No, absolutely. There was around the world, there were a few other groups. And well, what was our motivation? That's not been really addressed yet. The motivation of the Atlantic Wreck Divers was there a few photographers? Absolutely. There was a couple of noted photographers that wanted to get images, but the reality was most of us were looking to get artifacts. We were looking to recover objects from sunken ships. And the reason we had to go further offshore and deeper was that in the 50s and 60s and early 70s, the shallow wrecks had been already dived quite a bit by other divers, by the beginning divers. And so if you were diving a wreck in 50 to 60 feet of water that had been known for 10 or 15 years, the chance of you finding a glass like this that has a shipping line logo on it was nil because the guys had found it. That doesn't mean that every shipwreck. Well, that day I did rather well that day.
He's got a setting for 10.
That's a story unto itself. But
He's ready to open a store.
Yeah.
That actually was, believe it or not, that was 6 of us working in concert. We did that over 2 dives in one day, recovering that from a storeroom on an upside down World War I American cruiser called the USS San Diego off of Fire Island, New York. So yeah, that was what you can do as a team working together. We were able to do that. And of course, we not only did we split the spoils, but we take care of people, because having 10 of anything isn't fun, but it's great to have a couple of pieces and of course to share the wealth, because our philosophy was, okay, so today Richie Kohler and another guy did really good, but you know what? Tomorrow somebody else is going to do really good. And so if you share the wealth and you spread the winnings around, it comes back to you somehow, some way.
Yeah. I saw I'm sorry, Doug, but I saw an interview that Richie did maybe last year or something. And in it, which was really exciting, he said, some dives that Richie's the guy who has to go just set the hook, where he'll swim down, put that hook on so the other guys can pull themselves up. But that's his whole hunt. Like, that was it. Yep. But everyone has their turn. It's really a team effort. And, maybe that's his part of that day's mission, but it all comes around. You work as a team, because without that, other people are at risk. So those are the kind of things that I was like, wow, I never thought about it, where you're kind of bummed a little bit that you don't get to explore, but the importance of every little step could save lives and prolong the success of the hunt too. So I thought that was amazing.
Well, that was another thing that became kind of prevalent, is that in this group, in the Atlantic Wreck Divers, I received an education you can't pay for. There's nothing like being mentored.
Sure.
And when you're being mentored, not because you're paying someone, but because they're dependent on you. And this is exactly what you just alluded to. In diving, one of my favorite stories to talk about being dependent on your dive buddy, and not for the obvious. Most of you who are not scuba divers think it's always going to be, oh, you're out of air and somebody's got to share air. Believe it or not, sometimes it can be something equally as important, but not as dramatic as being out of air. And this particular scenario was, my job on a very big dive was to be a breadcrumb. Literally, I had to provide access for guys so that can get out of someplace. And if I failed, if I left, there was a good chance these guys could miss the exit or get entangled, and again, we're talking about a time where, you're very deep, you have a finite source of breathing gas or air, and the clock's ticking and the air's going. And it's like a fuel gauge. Nothing you do is going to stop that. And if you panic, it actually goes even faster.
Sure.
So you've got to be under control. You've got to breathe nice and slowly. And so in that one moment that a guy was depending on me to do something, and believe it or not, it was such a simple thing. We were in zero visibility, and my job was to hold the guy next to me and keep my hand on the wall. That wall was our direction, our way out. Because this was such an area of obstructions and things and entanglements, the idea of using a line or a rope could not only get caught up on other things, but get on us in zero visibility. So using this wall was the best way at that time, given what we knew then and where we were. It was one of many different methods we used for navigation. Well, I looked down in front of me in the very turbid water, and I saw a dish. And my friend, I could hear him. He's right next to me. I'm holding on to him, and I can hear him chuckling through his regulator, and I can hear the unmistakable sound of dishes like that being placed in his goodie bag. So I know he's getting dishes, and I'm like, this is awesome. But I saw a dish in front of me, and in that one moment, I put my hand down, I grabbed the dish, and I thrust it into the milky, chocolatey water where I thought his face would be. Well, all of a sudden, he just stiffened. I mean, it's like rigor mortis. He just froze.
You let go of the wall.
And he said, the wall, the wall. And he scared me. I know that people don't realize you can talk through a regulator, but trust me, you can. And when he said that, I said, I got it. And then he came close to me, and in the very disturbed water, I could still see his face through the mask, and his eyes were this big. And this was the leader of our group. We called him the Emperor. And for him to be that frightened me. And that's one thing about fear underwater. Fear is like fire. And when you see someone who's afraid, it will jump from that person to you, even though you may not even know what they're afraid of. And so I just was like, I could have just emptied my bowels at that moment. I put my hand on the wall. I grabbed his hand. I put his hand on mine, and I'm showing him, I got the wall. At that point, he lost his cool. Dive was over.
Yeah.
We left the wreck. The whole decompression, the whole time coming up, although we didn't speak a word, looking at each other, the look in his eyes spoke volumes. I figured I was kicked out of the club. My name was Mud. I'm done. But when we came up, he didn't say a word to anybody on the boat. All the people came around. They saw the bag of dishes. They were all like slapping us on the back. They took pictures. Hey, way to go, Richie. And he didn't say a word. It would be later that night when all the diving was done, dinner was done. We're on the back of the boat. We're staying out there overnight. The sun was setting on the horizon. He was having a beer. And I walked over to him, and I just said, hey, Pete, man, I'm really sorry. Excuse my language. I effed up. He goes, you realize that you could have gotten us both killed for a dish. You had one job. That was all you were supposed to do. Did you think I wasn't? No, Pete, I know we were sharing, but I just lost my focus for a minute. It'll never happen again. And he looked at me, and he held my gaze for a few seconds, and I didn't know where I was going to go. I really didn't. I was like shaking. And he just looked at me, and then his eyes softened. And he said, good, he went to school. And then he looked back.
Wow.
That was it. And then after that moment, and to this day, I've often recounted that story. I've been an instructor. I've taught people. I've mentored many, and I still mentor other divers to this day. And I know that we're humans. I know that we will make mistakes. We will make mistakes. We need to learn from those mistakes. And there's only one perfect guy, and they nailed him to the cross. So, we should all be as kind as Pete was to me, and moving on. So these are the kind of lessons you get from mentoring. You can't get that from a book. You cannot get, no matter what regimented instructional program an agency gives you, there is no experience like real life experience.
Yeah, I agree. And I think from someone who, like you, as I can try to judge your character already, your self-reflection of disappointing him was probably so overwhelming for you that you will never not follow instructions again, because you knew that he trusted you. And as innocent as it may have seemed to just reach down and grab a dish, the consequences could have been so severe, and you could have severed that trust, that I believe it. You'll never do that again. And if your job is to do the most simple task that might not sound sexy, it's for a bigger reason, and you're always going to be at that spot when you say you're going to be. And that's probably the most critical thing when you're in such a dangerous situation. You need to be able to count on that other person with 100%.
I don't want to jump around. I know that you earlier had spoken about talking about some of my work chronologically, but
yeah, that's okay.
I'm going to jump to what we've been doing. The last 5 years, I've been working on Titanic's sister ship, which is called the Britannic. She lays in 400 feet of water in the Aegean Sea, right off the small island of Kea. She was sunk by a German mine in 1916. She is, for all intents and purposes, identical to Titanic. with the exception of she was a hospital ship. Although she was originally built to be an opulent passenger liner, just like Titanic, because of World War I, she had been conscripted by the British. There she is. She had been conscripted by the British Admiralty and turned into a hospital ship, complete with wards, surgical wards, and of course, 1,000 doctors and nurses. This is a ship that was capable of carrying 3,000 wounded soldiers. Think about that. 3,000 soldiers, ill and wounded soldiers, plus another 1,000 doctors, nurses, and crew. So
Wow.
4,000 people would eat, sleep, live, operate, work on that ship for up to 2-3 weeks at a time as she went from England to the front off of Turkey. Or she would operate near the area of the Dardanelles. And so this ship has been a fascination for me. And without going too much into that, the point is that diving to 400 feet is an incredible experience. It's some of the deepest diving that I do, but it's not only that it's diving deep and then penetrating in that massive ship. I mean, she's 100 feet wide and 1,000 feet long and almost 100 feet tall. So think about it.
That's massive.
It is a skyscraper.
Yeah.
It's laying on its side on the seafloor, just like that.
Wow.
So it gives you, so when you're looking at that image, that shipwreck is 10 stories tall off
Yeah.
the floor and 1,000 feet long.
That's amazing. You can't even see, like you get so close to it, you can't even get an idea of the scale.
Exactly. And you know, our mission for the last 5 years has been to document, you know, not only the outside, that has been done extensively since Jacques Cousteau found the wreck in the 70s. We have been given a carte blanche by the Greek effort to go inside the wreck. And our mission was threefold. The first was to explore and document the condition inside the wreck for the sake of posterity. How is she holding up? She's been underwater over 100 years. You know, many ships that have been underwater even half that age have already collapsed and become a pile of steel. But this one is still intact. So this is an incredible opportunity to look at a time capsule, which has everything still inside. She was never commercially salvaged. Until this year, everything that sank on board that ship was still there. We were given the option to go in, locate objects, document them in place with the idea that the effort, the Greek Ministry of Antiquities, would ultimately give permission for these objects to be recovered and then ultimately find their way to a museum. They're not being recovered for salvage purposes or to be sold. They are going strictly into a museum. So, you know, my team has to operate like I was just explaining to you, but in a very amped up way. We're using closed circuit rebreathers, which is, again, military or commercial technology, very much akin to my heroes as a young boy. The same equipment that astronauts use to walk in space is what we're now diving with inside Britannic. These devices don't make bubbles, and they recirculate the air over and over again. And so those little tiny cylinders that you see, the little white cylinder leaning up there, that keep us underwater for 12 hours.
Wow, that little one?
Yes, sir. We use the oxygen and metabolize the oxygen, and whatever oxygen we don't metabolize, we just keep going around the loop and replacing only that our body uses. So we could stay underwater for up to 12 hours in those conditions with these closed circuit rebreathers. So in Britannic, the mission is dependent on everybody doing a task. You mentioned earlier that my job might be to go set the hook. That's the same thing here. We'll literally task a team. We always dive in teams to go down and bring the anchor line or the line to a very specific spot so that the team doesn't have to swim willy-nilly. Again, 1,000-foot long ship. We want to be able to get to a doorway or a hatch and be able to achieve our goals. So that means that two guys are going to schlep or move that rope wherever it needs to be. And if it takes them their entire dive or two dives, that's what they're going to do. And then the same task, we give guys an opportunity and a choice. It's like, hey guys, here's the blueprints. We know that this is how the ship was designed, but we don't know if there were changes made when she was turned into a hospital ship. So we're going to ask you to use this rudimentary blueprint and try to find your way to where the silver cabinet was, because maybe the effort's going to want us to recover some of the silver. And when I mean silver, I don't mean silver coins. I'm talking about silverware.
Yeah, forks, spoons.
Exactly, things like that. Or fine china or crystalware. Because again, one of the questions we had was, she was outfitted as an opulent passenger liner, would have everything just like Titanic had on board, but she would have been very, very different because she was a hospital ship. Did they remove these things, or were they still there? Well, much to our surprise, they were still there, because once they had been put on the ship, it was easier to lock them into place than it was to take them off the ship. So they simply left these in their larders or their storage rooms, and we were the first people to go to these areas, find these objects, and document them in place. And it was absolutely fantastic.
Wow. Now, listen, I don't want this to get morbid in any way, but were there still deceased people on this boat, or did most of them escape? When I know it sank in like an hour. 3,000 people. The ship sinks in an hour. I'd have to think some got trapped inside.
So Britannic, fortunately, had already dropped off her precious cargo of wounded soldiers in England, and was traveling only with the doctors, nurses, and the crew on board. So there was about 1,000 people on board when she was traveling to Mudros, and she was passing the small island of Kia in the Kia Channel when she had inadvertently went through an unknown German minefield that had been planted by German submarines. And this resulting explosion sank her 3 times faster than Titanic. And this is a story that you had mentioned earlier, that I had written a book. This was one of the reasons that kind of drew me to Britannic, was to kind of figure out this mystery. Why did she sink so quickly? But fortunately, and it's sad to say, fortunately, only 30 people died. But
Comparison.
if you think about 1,000 people on board, only 30 people died. And those people did not die when the ship sank being trapped on board. They actually panicked, and they launched the lifeboats prior to the captain's order. So the ship was steaming, and the captain tried to steer the ship to the nearby island of Kia in an attempt to beach and save his ship. So he had the engines going full speed. Well, there was panic on board, and some of these people, some of the doctors, nurses, including some of the sailors that were part of the crew, launched 3 lifeboats without permission. And these lifeboats hit the water, and because the ship was on an angle or listing to one side, one of the propellers, the port propeller, came out of the water. And these lifeboats were drawn right into the still moving propeller and chopped up like cordwood. And one of the survivors called it like a devil's pinwheel. That it was just a mass of splintered wood and body parts. It was horrific. But those were the only tragic deaths that have occurred.
Well, like you said, not to say that that's a good thing, but those people probably passed like that, where by drowning as the water's going up, that's the thing of nightmares.
I don't think. Let's put it. I don't think there's a good way to die.
No,
I'm not offering for either one of them. I'm going to tell you right now, there's not a good way. Neither one was good. And that again becomes part of the story. Every one of these objects, like I'm drinking scotch out of this glass, which you can probably read. It's got a shipping line logo on it. When you hold a tangible piece of history, and I know that your viewers and many other people understand that these artifacts are our connection to those stories. Yeah. And so getting back to Britannic, picking up those objects, picking them up, holding them in your hand, and then being able to bring them out to daylight, and then bring them up, and then ultimately into a museum where other people that don't go scuba diving can now enjoy that story, that experience. I know that in my world, there's a lot of different legalities that have to be obeyed or respected regarding the collection of artifacts. And there are certain areas, like this particular ship, where the collection of artifacts for personal use is forbidden. You'll go to jail.
Sure.
You can't do it. But there are places in the world, whether it's in international waters or other countries, where when you report these objects to the receiver of wreck and no one claims them, it does become your property. And so abandoned shipwrecks that are in international waters fall into some of this. Some areas, like I said, in the world, the collection of artifacts is lawfully allowed. And so you have to operate within the correct parameters of the law, and then you can bring home things like this. This is a cup and a saucer from the Andrea Doria.
Wow, that's cool.
The Andrea Doria is a passenger liner that sank in 1956 after a collision with a Swedish liner called the Stockholm. It happened at a time when both ships had working radar. It was not there was no storm. It was just a foggy night. But due to, that's a perfect picture of the Andrea Doria sinking the next morning. You can almost even see the wound right behind the bridge in front of the funnel from the icebreaker bow of the Stockholm where she plowed into it. But both ships misinterpreted their radar. And so, this is a case of two perfectly good airplanes crashing into the ground because the pilots didn't know what they were doing. That's exactly what was the cause of this accident. 56 people died in the collision, most of them in their beds. This occurred at 11 o'clock at night. She was only one day out of New York. She was supposed to the next morning pull into New York Harbor. And so that's tragic. Now, I've made a number of dives, over 100 dives, actually over 120 dives on the Andrea Doria, collecting these bits and pieces. I had never seen human remains, even though we know there were 56 people that died there. There's some silverware and other bits and pieces that I had recovered from the Andrea Doria. That's probably a trip back in 1987, I believe, with my good friend Pat Rooney.
I have a few pictures. I believe these are all Andrea Doria pictures, but if ever another wreck, I apologize.
Yep, those are the ones you're looking at right there. That's these.
Oh, the same ones. I have a super close listen. And if you guys want to see more, if you go to Richie Kohler's website, and there's a link in the description of this, the majority of these pictures I got are from Richie's website. He not only does all these, but he documents too, either cinematography, a lot of photos. So luckily he's been doing it his whole life. So it's a real treasure trove, pardon the pun.
Remember, a lot of this one man's treasure, the funny thing about shipwreck diving and these artifacts that I'm showing you, and I mean this with my whole heart, a lot of this stuff looks like it came out of my grandmother's, china cabinet. If I was walking by a thrift store, I wouldn't buy it.
I get it.
I would risk my life to go inside a shipwreck, dig in the mud, and bring this stuff out. So go figure that one.
I think this might be the same cup you just held up, isn't it?
It's very similar.
Similar?
Yeah, it's a very similar one.
And this Andrea Doria, I'm just looking over my notes, 240 feet deep, Doug. So again, just like the other one, I mean, in my research this week, there's like certain depth levels that you can go to depending on your skill level, experience level. And when you hit that 240 or so, they call that a technical diver. Like, you really have to know what you're doing. You have to mix these gases to be able to do it. You have to come back up, like he said, and decompress at certain levels. Like, it has to be very meticulous, or it could have the most serious of consequences. So when he dives to these ships, I don't want you to think like this is in the Caribbean where you can snorkel and see it. Like, he is down there 25 stories deep. And that pressure of all that water has got to be just incredible. And go ahead, Richie.
I'm glad you mentioned that. But when you're talking about mixing the gases and stuff like that, through my life, I have watched diving go from what was sea hunt, where, Lloyd Bridges just put a single tank or a double set of tanks on his back and with air in it and went diving. And that's the way I started. And then as technology caught up with what we were doing, or the sport diving world started adopting scientific and commercial and military techniques, mixed gases, closed circuit rebreathers, the advent of the diving computer just blew open my ability to go deeper, to stay longer, to go further. When I was a kid diving the Andrea Doria in 1985, I could not even imagine that in 20 years, I would be able to dive a closed circuit rebreather and go to 400 feet and spend an hour at depth, and then spend another 3 to 5 hours decompressing. And the biggest problem I have is I'm hungry when I get up, which is the truth.
I had also read, and
I've got the peanut gallery. So if you hear chittering, I've got a gang here, and so
of dogs or humans. I had read, and who better to ask than Richie, that when you go on these really deep dives and you use these rebreathers and the Trimox and all these things, that when you get down there, you'll get this effect called narcosis, which is like you get like a drunken, like loopy mindset while you're trying to do these incredibly precise things, navigate penetrating these ships, while you're kind of loopy, keeping track of your gauges and all that. Like, how do you juggle all that when you're not at 100% mentally?
So I remember we're not doing this chronologically, so I'm going to jump back and talk a little bit about the Andrea Doria. That was one of the dives we did, was on air. And so when you breathe air under pressure at depths up to 210 feet, you're going to experience what's called narcosis, nitrogen narcosis. Cousteau had labeled it Martini's Law. And he did that because he would say that, for every atmosphere you go down underwater, an atmosphere being roughly 30 feet, it was like drinking a martini on an empty stomach. So you can understand that being on the Andrea Doria, breathing air, was like having 4 or 5 martinis on an empty stomach. So you're hammered. And so how do you operate under this? Well, you become methodical. And what I mean by that is you become learned behavior. You get down to the bottom, you pick up your gauge, you look at your gauge, you put it down, you're like, well, that didn't take. You pick it up again, you look at it, and then you're like, why am I looking at this? I know this is important. I need to know how much air. And what happens is you develop the skill set, which is like swim, look at my air pressure. Swim. When I was diving open circuit, meaning scuba tanks and breathing air, all I cared about was the amount of air. Everything else you could work around. But if you run out of air, you're done. So I was looking at my fuel gauge. That was the most important. I didn't care about time. I didn't care about depth. I cared about air. And because what would happen is when you come up a little bit, the narcosis will abate, and then you're level-headed again. And so then you can kind of figure things out. So when you get down to the bottom, repetitive behavior, and what throws you for a loop is that if you go into the water and you've got feelings of dread or feelings of doom, if the water's very dark, if you know that you're going on a tragic dive like a body recovery, you're going to find someone that didn't come back, narcosis is going to affect you even worse. It's going to amplify those feelings. At the same time, Cousteau would talk about it when he was diving in blue water and it was a sunny day and a fish would go by or a dolphin. He would want to take his regulator out and give it to him because he was so happy and giddy. So my point is, you can have a euphoric experience or you can have this dreaded experience. Well, needless to say, when people have been diving deep, like on the Andrea Doria, and they've had this negative experience, it's affected their decision-making process to such a point that they've made bad decisions, tragic bad decisions, ones that ultimately cost them their life. Mm-hmm. So when you learn, remember I mentioned earlier, we have to learn from this behavior, we have to learn from these mistakes. And so one of the things, again, diving in a team, and I mentioned to you earlier, when you see fear in one guy's eyes, how it can jump to the other, but also at the same time, a lot of times when you think you may have a problem, if you're diving with somebody, they can make that problem go away. Meaning, oh, I'm snagged, something's behind me, and they'll go, stop, 1 minute, they'll free. So it kind of helps things mitigate that stress. And I think one of the most poignant in my life aspects of this coming to fruition for me was when in the late 90s, we inadvertently found a World War II German submarine 60 miles off the coast of New Jersey. And this was a bona fide enigma, because when we first found it, we didn't even believe it was a Nazi submarine. I thought it was an American submarine, but then we recovered bits and pieces of crockery that had the eagle and the swastika and the year
Wow.
1942. And so this proved that this was actually a World War II German submarine. But when we went to the American Navy, they said, well, there was no German submarines lost off the coast of New Jersey. So this submarine must have been one that they sank as a target. But when we went inside the submarine, it was one of the most horrific things that to this day I've really ever experienced, because throughout the inside of the submarine was the remains of her 56-man crew, skeletal remains, some of them still in the tattered remains of their uniform.
Wow.
Jutting out of the silt, ribs, thigh bones. It was, for a kid who had never seen anything like that, human remains, and being cognizant of the fact this isn't Disneyland. These are real people.
Yeah.
Whose
loved ones probably never knew what happened to them.
Well, that was part of what motivated me ultimately to work with another fellow named John Chatterton. It took us 6 years to just simply come up with an answer. And the answer was what submarine this was. Once we knew the number or the name of the submarine, well, then we could know who these 56 men were. See, at the beginning of this 6-year drama, for me, it was a drama. I didn't know what I didn't know. I didn't realize that, German U-boats had been lost with such grievous numbers. Of the 700 U-boats that had been built during the war, a majority of them had been sunk, almost all of them with their crew. And hey, can you keep it down, guys? Thank you. And when you look at those atrocious numbers, 40,000 men served in German submarines during the war, 30,000 went down with their boat. That's a rate of 3/4 of their force went down. Yeah, now don't get me wrong. They were the enemy. They were the Nazis in World War II. But when we found this submarine, they were 56 men whose mothers, fathers, brothers, children, wives did not know what had happened to them.
Yeah.
And John Chatterton, myself, and a handful of other divers felt compelled to figure out the mystery, to know who they were, so that we had the opportunity to tell their families not what they knew. They knew that these guys didn't come home, but they didn't know what had happened or where they were. And I felt that nobody should lay anonymous and unknown and forgotten at the bottom of the sea. Not when we could do something that would ultimately, hopefully, be able to solve that mystery. And we did. It came at a terrible cost, because the diving, as we were talking about, was incredibly deep. This was 230 feet. Over the 6 years we dove this wreck, 3 men lost their lives, 2 of them being a father and a son, tragically. And, these were horrible lessons. People asked me at the time, and even to this day, was it worth it? Risking you at that time. I was a young father. I had 2 small children. Why would I do this? And, not everybody can understand why they feel compelled to risk their lives for an answer to a question. But I looked at it as, I was given an opportunity, this incredibly rare opportunity to make a difference, a real difference. I was a scuba diver. For most of my life, I picked up crap underwater and, just to put it on my mantle, just a collector. But all of a sudden now I had an opportunity to use my skills to find something that could really make a difference, that could really provide closure to someone. And it did. And in a way, another one of those forks in the road, another place where my life took a turn and for the better. Working and doing these things on that submarine gave me an opportunity to change people's lives, and people noticed that. A guy wrote a book about it, became a New York Times bestseller. Some people made a documentary film about it, won an Emmy, became an Emmy Award-winning documentary called Hitler's Lost Sub, put out by WGBH, PBS. It was a PBS Nova special, one of their highest-rated programs to this day. And what was it? It wasn't because of me or John. It was because of the story. It was about Mystery Submarine, and it was about a couple of people that did it not for money. There was nobody paying us to do this. There was nobody. There was no treasure. There was no book. There was no film. There was nothing. There was nothing but an answer.
Yeah.
All of that attention came afterwards. So it kind of made me understand that, you do the right thing for the right reason, people will notice. And they did. And I got an opportunity because of that to start working for television. And working for television gave me opportunities to further my diving career, to go places that other people couldn't even begin. Again, getting back to that analogy of me being a young boy growing up in Brooklyn and watching astronauts climb into their spacecraft. Who would have thought that in 2005, because of all the things I've done and the opportunities afforded me, I would then have the opportunity to climb into a Mir submersible. I'm wearing a Nomex flight suit, the American flag on one side, my mission patch on the other, my name, and take that submersible 2.5 miles down and explore one of the greatest shipwrecks, or maybe the most infamous shipwreck in modern human history, which of course is the RMS Titanic.
Yeah, I'm trying to jump around to put some pictures up because you've done so much stuff. I do have some of this because I had so many questions about this. Like you had to get a Russian Mir sub. You got to pay for that. Someone's got to pay for that. You got to coordinate that between nations. It's probably as expensive as anything. From what I read, you had to have a Russian pilot of this. So you had to really work with them. They were in this small submersible that only holds, I think, 3 people. I have some photos.
Yep.
And then you're trusting that this guy's going to get you safely 2+ miles.
The Russian submersibles, there was, at the time that I did this in 2005, the first thing I'd like to tell you is I was working for the History Channel, and I went to my bosses at the History. At this point, we had been working for them for 4 years. And that's a view of myself on the left, John Chatterton, and our pilot and the leader of the program, and Dr. Anatoly Segalevich, is in the middle. He was the inventor of the Mir submersibles. By the time that I chartered them, James Cameron had been using the Mir submersibles, as you know, probably from the film Titanic. So these were a platform much like Nautil, which is a French submersible, or Alvin, which is an American submersible. There was only 3 or 4 submersibles in the entire world capable of diving to the depth of Titanic, and that's me with one of my pilots, Victor. And when you think about this opportunity that was afforded me. And I'm sorry, that's my pilot is Jenya. That was my pilot in that photograph. We went to the History Channel and said, we have this opportunity to try and contribute to the story of Titanic. We had been given a tip from a person who was working with the company RMST that had been salvaging objects from the shipwreck. And he had saw these ribbons of steel. And, his theory was these ribbons of steel might have been from where the ship had hit the iceberg and the steel pulled away. And so if we found these ribbons of steel, if we could document them and prove that's what it was, well, then we'd have the smoking gun. We would be able to contribute to the story. So we weren't looking to go out there just to be tourists or to make a documentary film. We actually wanted to be, quote unquote, deep sea detectives. We wanted to contribute to the base of knowledge of the ship, because no matter how many times you dive any shipwreck, the sea and ships will only give you so much knowledge at a time. And so each dive, you learn something. And each time you go further afield or outside the box or look at things from a different angle, you see things sometimes differently. So we pitched this to our bosses at the History Channel. They loved it. They were so excited. They thought this was the greatest idea. Until we told them how much it would cost. And then they said no. Now, in the hour we've been speaking, if there's one thing I think you and your audience has picked up on, is I can be a little obsessive and passionate. And so giving Richie Kohler an opportunity to go to Titanic and then having it taken away just simply because History Channel won't pay for it, well, that wasn't going to work. So
you're not going to take no for an answer.
So myself, John Chatterton, and a producer named Kirk Wolfinger each ponied up $100,000.
Wow.
We chartered the Russian vessel Academic Mstislav Geldish with her 2 Mir submersibles. $300,000 got us 2 weeks for 25 people to go on, and we were going to self-produce this documentary film. And we did, but we didn't make one film. We made 3 films. We made one film about our project. We made another film about what we found and what it meant. And then the third film leads me to the next 20 years of my life being obsessive, which would be to Britannic. Because one of the things that our project on Titanic needed was to understand what possible changes they had made in Britannic and what structural engineering may have caused Britannic to break apart. Titanic to break apart. So we needed to go to Britannic. Well, let me tell you something. When I was diving Titanic in those submersibles and I'm looking out of these little tiny 4-inch ports, straining my eyes to see everything you can in a very dark and a cold, bitterly cold environment, you're never far from the feeling that you're in a mass grave, because you are. 1,500 souls lost their lives everywhere around me. And although you don't see their bones, you see their shoes, you see their eyeglasses, you see life vests, life jackets that were drawn down by the suction of the ship as she was come down until the water pressure crushed them. And you can imagine that they were still around the neck of some poor person. And so you're cognizant of the fact that this dark and dreary ship is a big cemetery. But when you go to Britannic, she lies in beautiful, clear, gin-clear Aegean water, warm water. She's surrounded by shoals of fish and life. And so for a scuba diver, the opportunity for me, not needing a submersible, but to go down to this ship and be able to swim inside it and then explore, answer questions. Number one, why did she sink so fast? Then go on and continue to document, does she have treasures on board? And again, treasures being a relative term. When I say treasures, I'm not talking about gold and silver or money. I'm talking about objects that are, to most people, treasured items of a bygone age, treasured items that you could link to Titanic. This is not from the Titanic or the Britannic, but I'm pretty sure most people know that this is the logo of the White Star Line. And so this is from one of their sister ships. This is called the Afrique. So this is a dish that is identical to the ones that were recovered from the Titanic or the ones that are being recovered from the Britannic. So these objects, these items are priceless to some people, and to other people, they're just bits and pieces of crockery.
Yeah, no, I totally get it. And I think a lot of the audience gets it because on a smaller, much less dangerous scale, our world's sort of the same thing. So it could be the most innocent little broken piece of a brooch or a button or something that's 200-300 years old, and it's a treasure to us. We just didn't risk our lives to get it like you did.
Well, risking your lives to give you an idea of the pressure. So this is a cute little memento. One of the things we weren't allowed to take or remove anything from Titanic on my mission. But what we were allowed to do was take full-size coffee cups and draw on them, and then you put them in a net bag outside the submarine, and then you use the pressure of 12,500 feet to crush them, and then you bring them up and you have these little mementos. So these are little mementos that we all make. But this was a regular size coffee cup. But this is what happens to it, a styrofoam cup.
Wow.
When it's been crushed. So this is one of the mementos that I made of my dive to Titanic. And people get a kick out of seeing that. But because I'm going to wrap it up pretty soon. But I wanted to let you know, people think that the artifacts that I get from shipwrecks, what's your favorite? What's the most valuable? It is varied through my career. When I was a young kid and I was first diving the Andrea Doria, getting something like this was, oh my God, this was the bomb. I would hold this up like the Holy Grail. And then, of course, years later, when I'm diving the German submarine and, finding something with the eagle and swastika. Now, the funny thing about this is that we were covering crockery because it had the year. If you look on the bottom, it says 1941. We were using crockery to date the wreck because, as most of you know, World War II went from 1938 to 1945. America's involvement was after 1942, so we were using these bits of crockery to kind of figure out, well, what did it sink? How old is the crockery? And then we forensically started finding other objects. And so our goal was to not disturb the human remains. And at the conclusion of our work on that submarine, we gave the majority of the objects, the artifacts that we covered, to either the family members and or the U-boat archive in Cuxhaven, Germany, keeping only a memento or two for myself of my adventure, if you will. It is a war grave. Since then, I've only gone back with a camera. There's nothing to be gained by taking anything else. We know the answers now. So, as a war grave, it has protected status. So I like to add those. But, some of the most mundane things are my favorite. I was diving a wreck off of Georgia, not very deep, only in about 70 feet of water.
Wow.
All these keys. So I have the keys to a shipwreck.
Wow, that's cool.
So I just thought you guys would love the skeleton keys. And, I know you guys find them all the time, too.
Yeah.
They're just really beautiful, and they make me happy. And then, the last thing I'm going to show you is,
oh, wow.
Probably one of the more cooler things. And people say to me, like, the keys, I polished them up nice. They look really nice. But sometimes keeping an artifact in its found state makes it special.
Yeah.
It tells a story. So having all of the coral and barnacles still on this tiny little ship's bell makes it a unique piece.
I agree.
And so each, like you guys, each piece tells a story.
Yeah. It does. And this week, if you look on the news, it just came out like Monday that the first artifacts were brought up from the Britannic. Now, I don't have a picture of the bell, but the bell was one of the items that they brought up, as well as these binoculars. And, it's just these are the first things that the ship's been down there over 100 years. This is the first time that artifacts are being brought up, probably because of the red tape and you want to document everything. You don't just want it looted. I thought that was just really big news on the week Richie happens to be coming on. One of his ships that he's so known for the first time ever, are bringing artifacts up. I thought that was incredible. And I wanted to ask you, Richie, like, in a weird sort of way, do you think these artifacts that were brought up fell loose through years of decay and weathering, or
No,
were
no,
they
no,
still
no.
anchored to their
So
original position?
that photograph is my wife's photograph. My wife found those binoculars, and she was the one who brought them up.
Really?
All of that salvage was done by me and my team. We are the ones who brought the bell up, the lantern.
Oh, back in May, that was you guys that did that.
Correct.
I didn't see that in the article. That makes a big world of difference.
No, they just said a team of 11 divers.
Yeah.
Because that was a news release put out by the Greek effort. So we're volunteers. We paid to do this, and so that's my wife's picture.
Wow, good for her.
Recovered those binoculars. We recovered lots of crockery, some other objects that relate to the ship as a hospital ship. I'm not at privilege to talk about all of them, because not that I'm on a gag order or anything, but it's up to they're going to be using all of these objects as a centerpiece of their new museum, Marine Antiquities Museum in Piraeus. And so I know that they want to release it, but that was us. That was our team. 5 years working, documenting those objects. And in May, we had our team of 11 divers, and we recovered the ship's bell, ship's lantern, crockery, the binoculars, various other sundry items, and some very unique small pieces. Our work is not done. We'll be going back again in 26 for more objects. And stay tuned, because
that's amazing. Yeah. And I wanted to promote Richie's book, The Last Olympian, which goes into a lot of the story of the Britannic. Richie's, I don't want to say perception like he's making it up, but his thoughts on why this ship sunk, even though it was supposed to be an improvement on the Titanic, it sunk in like a third of the time. So obviously things went wrong, and he breaks it down, goes into a lot of stories, an incredible story, which I don't want to get into now, of a particular nurse that was on the Titanic, the Britannic, and the third ship, all three of them. And she lived through all of it. It's really amazing. So go check it out. I think I saw this week, Richie, you said it's even an audiobook form now.
Yep, it's out in audiobook for those who like to listen to books while they drive.
Yeah, or like Doug on the toilet.
Yeah. Drown out the noises. Yeah.
Yeah. But no, go check it out. He's done some incredible work, and all week long, Richie, I'm like on the edge of my seat reading these stories, listening to interviews. Not only did you live this incredibly adventurous life, but you're such a gifted storyteller and orator that when you listen to you feel like you're there with you. So I'm really honored that you came on and shared what you did. I'm going to keep following everything you do, because it's just so exciting. I don't want to drag everybody on with more pictures, but if you go to Richie's website, like I said, there are just so many pictures of some of these incredibly interesting things he did. And I'm not alluding that he doesn't by himself. I know his friend John was a huge part, a lot of team members. I'm sure everything is a team effort, but it seems like, you hear like the golden age of music, like maybe in the 50s and 60s, or the golden age of comic books in the 30s. It seems to me, an outsider, the golden age of wreck diving, Richie was at the forefront of the entire thing, from my perception. So it really is. It's an honor to have you on, because people are going to be talking about what you've accomplished in this for 100, 200 years. It's really amazing.
Well, I hope so.
Well, I'm just saying it's incredible. You were really on the forefront as they evolved from, like he said, just regular air to all these new ways of breathing and getting down deeper and going longer and being the first people to penetrate in these ships. And, I have another photo just to give people a reference, and I'm going to try to cut them off soon. I know it's been here late. But, again, just as a reference, and this is just a diagram. This isn't like an actual photo. But this is the Andrea Doria when it fell in 56, or a representation thereof.
Yeah.
And you can just see here, like, here's an image of it in 1991, around the time Richie's diving it. You can see the front of it, like, it's starting to decay. It's starting to fall apart, while Richie was in there going through the ship, documenting, trying to find relics and artifacts. But just 10 years later, like the ship is now reduced to
Wow.
this. So
Yep.
like all those opportunities that Richie had, it's not like someone else can come in and pick up where he left off. That opportunity is
gone.
now over. And if not for him and his contemporaries, we'd never know because these things fall apart. He captured it at that moment where it was accessible, as hard as it was, but that time is gone forever. So that part is just so incredible that he was able to share these while it was there, and we learned so much from it. So, but Richie, again, I can't thank you enough for coming on and sharing all your stories. I'm really excited. I mean, maybe one day I'll be back again because I'm sure he's going to pull up more things from Britannic.
We'll want an update.
I will. I want an update, man. But thank you very much. I can't thank you enough for coming on. And hey, I look forward to seeing more incredible recoveries from the sea.
Thank you very much. It's been a real pleasure, guys.
Thank you.
Be safe, and thank you very much for your time tonight.
Take care, my friend. Thanks for coming on.
Cheers. Good night.
Good night.
Doug, come on, man. That's pretty awesome. That is pretty darn cool. It's like having Neil Armstrong come on the show. Like, hey guys, I got Neil Armstrong coming. You're like, that's what it is. He's the Neil Armstrong of the ocean. Yep. Because how many, like, I love adventures, whatever it is. You can metal detect, you can look for gold. You can go collect sticks or you can go collect Beanie Babies. I don't care. But how many adventures where the scariest thing is there's no gosh darn air. Like that's like a big, like you can go without water for X amount of days, food for X amount of weeks. How long can you last without air, Doug?
30 seconds.
Yeah. And even if you run out of air, if he's at 400 feet down, even if he runs out, he couldn't even get to the surface in time. Oh. So what an incredibly adventurous, scary thing to do, unless you are incredibly prepared, incredibly thought through the process. That way you turn that fear into, into making this a reality. The fear is what gives you the maturity to be able to do it. I found it fascinating.
Right. And the fact that they're doing everything as a team, they've worked all these details out. Everybody has a job. It makes it so much easier to survive. They've got a lot of chutzpah. I could never do that. Never.
I know, Eric. Sticks and Beanie Babies was a bad analogy. Listen, I'm shooting from the hip, but you get what I'm saying. Yeah. It was amazing, and like I said, you really should go get his book, Doug. I read the story. If we didn't run low on that, I had a gazillion questions, but. Yeah. When he tells a story, you're hanging on every word of it. And I couldn't really get to any of them.
Well, it's so weird that we were talking about that submarine. I was just reading about it today, and I only got so far into the details of it. They said that it could have been one of their own torpedoes, or it could have been what do they call those things that they drop from a ship to depth charge?
Oh yeah.
They weren't quite sure what destroyed it. I'm sure if I continued to read, I would have gotten the answer, but it was very compelling. And the fact that they found it, identified it, and gave the families of this ship or this submarine an answer, I'm sure it made the difference to a whole lot of people.
Yeah, look, I mean, this was found like 50, 60 miles off the coast of New Jersey, which is where I live.
I fish 50, 60 miles.
Yeah, like you've probably sailed over top of it.
We could have.
But I mean, listen, there's a lot of World War II enthusiasts out there. Did you ever think that a German submarine got that close to U.S. soil?
Well,
that's even amazing.
They had, but most of them they knew were there. If you go down the coast of Delaware, and we had some in Jersey as well, they'd have these big towers, and their purpose was to look for ships and submarines running along the coast. interesting thing about this particular sub, nobody knew it had gotten there. And of course, they didn't know that they sunk it either. So I can't wait to finish reading about it to find out, since I didn't get the answer tonight.
And on Richie's site, you can check it out. This is a photo of the crew of that sub. And you can hover over the actual photo. We can't do it here. And it'll tell you their names. And there's a roster list. Like I'd read that he had actually gone over to Germany and tracked down the families to talk about it. Like, what an incredible thing. Like these were Nazi soldiers, like people that we were
human beings, though.
They were, but I'm saying it was embedded in us that these are the enemy. Like
they were the enemy.
But you put that aside to give the family closure. Right. And the whole story is just fascinating.
I was wondering and I wanted to ask him, but did they have some kind of memorial over the site, since they didn't bring the bodies out? Obviously, that's their tomb. But was there some type of event that kind of finalized that as their grave,
Yeah, I think there was something over in Germany. We'll have to save that for when Richie comes on again. Yeah. And then the last one, real quick, I just wanted to say, this was the nurse. If you read her story online, and Richie covers it in much more depth in his book. Her name is Violet Jessup, and she was actually on the Titanic when it sunk. Obviously, got away in a lifeboat. Saw it sink, saw thousands of people drowning, screaming in the night, dying. Like, how traumatic. Makes it back to England, then gets put on the Britannic, the sister ship, which is bigger. They fixed all the things that they thought sunk the Titanic. So she's probably like super leery, but she's like, all right. And then that one sinks. Like, what are the odds?
What's the common denominator? Her. Don't let her on board.
She lived to like into the 70s though. So she was a good luck. But can you imagine living through that scenario twice?
Yeah. Hey, do you want to go fishing? No, leave her at the dock.
I'm not inviting Violet.
Take her on your boat.
But no, what an amazing guest, Doug. I was really excited to have him on. So I can't thank him enough.
Yeah. Very nice of him to give his expertise this evening.
Yeah, I have some more good guests coming up, Doug, in October. I'm still booking people. I really love finding people that do things different than us. I've got a guy who writes about pirates, and we're going to find out how pirates affected the colonies. And what I'm curious is, like, you hear like these big name pirates and on the seas, they've got a beard and they're shooting their cannons and all. But what happens when they dock and that guy's got to get off the ship and go buy a sandwich or bread? Like, do the people know he's a big bad pirate on the seas? Like at that point, is he, hey, how you doing? My name's John. Like what is all, like, I'm really curious about. You pull the pirate off the ship and how does he function?
Is he still a pirate?
Yeah, he's got to live. He's got to eat. He's got to drink. He's got to sleep somewhere. I'm excited to have this guy on. So we'll talk more about that in the future.
Hey, what is a pirate's favorite letter of the alphabet?
Oh God, this is a terrible joke.
R.
Come on, who didn't see that coming, Doug? That was like a slow underhand softball.
That's a senior citizen joke.
I'm embarrassed for you right now.
That's okay. That's okay.
No, but
you didn't know the answer though.
Well, I didn't. I was going to let you. Tell the joke. But listen, there was a few super chats earlier. I missed them. I didn't want to interrupt Richie. I do apologize. No. I see Rich was in there for a little bit. Oh, Metal Detectorist. Here was one. No, she's been there the whole time too. I'll bring her thing up. Thank you, Bree.
Yeah,
it was a good guest and a super good human. You're absolutely right. And I plan on having more shipwreck people on because as I read about it, Doug, it is just amazing what these people are doing. So, and there's a lot of parallel. Like you heard everything he said. You pick up a saucer and most people, like, you wouldn't buy it at the thrift store. How many times have I told you that analogy? Like if a homeless guy came up to me in the street and handed me a button, I'd be like, yo, get away from me, bro. Yeah. But when you dig it out of the ground, it's priceless to you because there's the provenance of where it came from. Like I can't explain it until you do it. And
Yeah,
I know,
history can be the smallest thing. Where did that button? Who had that button on their jacket? Who held that cup or that piece of silverware? Uh, Little things like that really go through my mind when I find something that I didn't anticipate finding. And he has that same feeling with the
yeah,
things that he's pulling out of the ocean. So
yeah. So
I can relate.
yeah, so show him some love if you're really interested. Pick up his book. I think all the seasons of his Deep Sea Detective History Channel show are available online, Netflix, Hulu, something like that. Look him up. And he's got all sorts of PBS specials and Nova specials. Like I said, he was at the forefront of these things. He was at the golden age of this, Doug, where these incredibly famous ships, some of them are just falling apart. And if he
Yeah,
didn't get in when he did, it just
the
collapses and it's gone
opportunity
forever.
wouldn't be there. Yep.
That's right. So, all right, Doug, we're going to get ready to wind this up. I want to thank everybody who hung out all night. Of course, the moderators, Teresa the Treasure Hunter and Hot Mess Fishing. I don't know if they had to do a lot of moderate. I don't think there's any shenanigans going on, but if they did, thank you guys. And everybody for coming in all night. And Doug, I'll give you the final word of the night.
Oh, geez.
I like to put the pressure on you.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for tuning in. It was a great guest, and I hope we have the opportunity to invite him back and he shows up. That's I'm sure there's more that we can glean from his thrilling life. I mean, I'm glad he can do it. I couldn't, but it sounds very exciting and be nice to have him back.
Yeah, well, I'm 1 for 1 with him, so that's a good.
Yep.
That's a good spec. So, all right, listen, everybody, thank you guys for hanging out. Oh, no show next week. We're going to be traveling, so no live show next week, but we'll be back probably in 2 weeks. So, unfortunately, maybe you can watch a rerun, Doug. There's some good reruns out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Watch this one again.
Yeah, you can watch this one again. You can watch last week's with WC, who was another super gifted storyteller.
Absolutely enthralling, yes.
Yeah, you get a good storyteller, man. It makes it fun. But we won't not be live.
Interesting. One is all water related, and one is the mountains and hardships. Above ground and some below.
Yeah, treasure is one of those weird things, Doug. Where coming up, I got a rock hound coming on, and this girl is really cool. She's young, she's energetic, she's a geologist, and she makes finding these rocks so much fun and exciting. And she'll go over what to look for, what they're worth, how to know what you're. I just find that amazing. We're looking at the ground everywhere we go. Why not add another thing to look for as you're walking along? So just make me think like treasures are whatever you want them to be.
Yep.
So, all right, well, we're going to get out of here, Doug. I'm really tired and I'm hungry.
See ya.
So, hey, thank you guys. What?
You're always hungry.
I know I am hungry. So we're out of here, everybody. So, hey, thanks for watching. Thanks again to our guest, Richie Kohler, and everyone that hung out all night. But we're going to end this one up. So, hey, thanks for watching. Happy hunting. And we will see you in the next one. Later.
See ya.